Usually, it's kind of hard to hear the backgrounds, and usually I feel, well, and I joke around. I say I used to be 6'2" before I started doing all that sort of stuff. But joking aside, I think from my spirit has been lifted quite a bit over the years, having learned from many mentors, having gone through the exercises that Goli just explained, from tons of entrepreneurs, as well as my students here at SC and other places. One of the things that I've learned, actually the things that I've learned over the years, both failure and success, has kind of led me to write the book. And I want to spend around 20 minutes with you, 25 minutes maybe, and share some of the pieces around the book. And then we'll have a little bit of a Q&A, and this young lady, Mina, who's a law student here, is going to interrogate me with her law. Yes. One of the things that I've learned is that we all look at the world from our own perspective. Wherever we sit, being a student, be a professor, be an entrepreneur, be a startup CEO or a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, be it a mortgage broker, be it a manufacturing guy, be it a salesman, be it a politician or a citizen. We all see the world differently. We all want to gain advantage. We all want to excel. So wherever you sit and however you define success, the fact is that the world we live in is pretty fast. It's faster than it's ever been. It is unpredictable more than ever. It's global, it's connected, and it is filled with expectations that are ever increasing. Employees have increased expectations, customers have increased expectations, parents, kids, wherever you look. And it is filled with challenges that range from losing our jobs to robots, to artificial intelligence, to cybersecurity, to issues of now nationalism and trade. It is filled with tremendous amount of challenges. It's also filled with tremendous amount of innovation at every corner, every minute, from every place on the globe. So it's a world that's moving fast, it's filled with innovation, filled with expectation, and filled with challenges. So I want you to ponder for a minute, think for a minute, wherever you sit, from whatever perspective you look at the world. Are you ready for the change? Are you evolving fast enough? Are you staying relevant? The fact of the matter is, our world is pregnant with tremendous amount of challenges and a huge amount of opportunities. And in order to thrive, in order to gain an advantage, in order to get ahead, we need to stay relevant in whatever we do. To whoever the audience that we are trying to approach is. Staying relevant requires constant evolution because everything else is changing. So this is where the analogy of the caterpillar comes in. The caterpillar evolves from one form to another, and then to another, and then to another. It evolves multiple times before it goes from one species to completely a different species. It has to manage 4,000 muscles. As a point of reference, we have about 600 as human beings. it has to deal with lots of dangers along the way in order to go from one form to another, in order to evolve. And that is the caterpillar's edge. So the book, The Caterpillar's Edge, addresses this issue of the need for us to evolve and evolve again. And if there was room in the cover, I would say evolve again, and evolve again, and evolve again. One of the first things that the caterpillar does after it becomes a butterfly, it lays eggs for the next generation. So it's evolving even after it gets to a point, because it recognizes that all advantages are temporary. So for us to gain the caterpillar's edge, we have to shift our mind. We have to change our actions. The old habits, the way we were approaching things before, does not necessarily work in a world that is unpredictable, that is changing constantly, that is different. So the Caterpillar's Edge book has 4 parts to it, and it includes about over a couple of dozen interviews and discussions that I've had with CEOs, with venture capitalists, with various inventors, has lots of examples and personal stories, and it begins to frame first by looking at the way things are, the challenges, and how things have changed and what things have remained the same. They kind of sift through hoopla and reality, truth and non-truth, because that's the place where we begin to start what is relevant still to us and what is not. And then it basically builds around a few ideas around how do we become the butterfly? What do we have to do? What are the things that are important in this journey? And it's not a how-to book, it's not a cookbook. The idea is to provoke your thoughts, because your unique evolution is your unique evolution. Be it a CEO, be it a budding entrepreneur, be it a teacher, be it a student. So what I'd like to do is in the next 10-15 minutes, I'd like to talk about the different parts a little bit and share with you some of the ideas in each one of the parts. So part 1 is about hopes and fears, past and future. I begin with talking about and sharing some statistics and some information around what is the status of companies today. How are they doing? And what we see is clear indication that things are not as rosy as they look, either in the big companies or in the startups. So then I would talk about the addiction that we have, the addictions to the ways of the past, the addictions to the ways and things that we're comfortable with, our orthodoxies, our biases, the way we approach life. And I also talk about this notion that the world is now a reality show. It's a reality show where the ending cannot be predicted. And all the players, the competitors, the employees, the countries, are all moving. And if you cannot predict the future, you have to get comfortable with probability, with unpredictiveness. I also talk about the learning process from failures and successes, not just our own, but others. And not just passing by, without judgment, looking at how an Amazon versus a Walmart are working. Why is it like that? Why is it that we're living in the politics that we're living today? What happened? It's not random. There are things to learn. There are things to apply to us. So I talk about and write about this notion of learning from others and learning from us. In the second part of the book, I begin to talk about things like differentiating between the hoopla and the truth, and we have some data scientists here in data analytics, the truth about what competing on analytics means versus what competing on analytically informed strategies mean. I examine a little bit of what has passed in the history of things and where we are, what we talk about big data that's everywhere now, what does it mean in my opinion, and how has it evolved. I talk about this massive force that I call the force of insight that is now available, and how do we gain the advantage through using this massive force so that we are more informed as we begin our journey for evolution. I also talk about innovation, and I differentiate innovation from I'm tinkering with something to make it better to creating new value, something that only exists in the unknown. And I talk about the millennials and the advent of who they are, what they are, and I claim that folks like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, although they weren't born in that period, between '89 and 2000, they are true millennials because they feel they deserve more, they are set to get more, and they are not afraid of changing. In part 3, I begin to kind of provide some, if you would, nudges. I talk about things like emergence and evolution. So let's take a Microsoft versus an Apple. They both started with the same objective, creating a personal computer. But look where they are. It's all those decisions that they made that made them who they are today. Same objective, almost the same period, but entirely two different emergence, two different set of evolutions. So the evolution and the emergence that occurs in each one of us is as a series of decisions that we make, and it is those decisions that shape who we are. Those decisions that builds our future. So when you talk about organizations and when you talk about companies, obviously people are at the center. You can't expect people to change all the time and say, hey, today we have a new strategy. Today there's a change. So and so said that, so let's change our strategy. There has to be a way for organizations to be ready to change. Just like you and I have challenges with changing, our organizations and people would have challenges in changing. So we have to create and understand what I call the rhythm of the organization. IBM has its own rhythm. They communicate, they discuss, they solve problems different than Google. They have a different organization. For my friends who own the Sharkies, the way you solve problems and your relationship with the employees, that's a different dynamic. We all, at home, at work, have a rhythm. And we don't like to change that rhythm. We like this rhythm. We're used to it. We're comfortable with it. So I write about how do you change that rhythm? Because if we want to change, we can't change. We live in a society, we live in an organization, we live in a family, we live in a community that requires to change together. And I talk about this notion of creative crisis where we aim to change while we are facing a crisis. And maybe we even create crisis to change. And talk about this notion of being at arms always in our mind and in our actions. So I end that chapter with 3 missions. The 3 missions are: 1, we must align with uncertainty, because there is nothing certain in the world. Nothing is certain. The second is we have to appreciate our reality, who we are, our organizations, where we sit. And that doesn't mean we don't have any goals. It just means that we have to appreciate what we have and first win with what we've got, and then build the future in increments to do better. There is a difference between sitting at home and dreaming that we're going to be Google, than building that future one step at a time. And that begins with appreciating our reality. The last thing is the notion of aspiring for more. Aspiring for more intelligence, for more knowledge, for more insight. Aspiring to be more relevant and not just stay relevant. Aspiring to create relevance. So the last part deals with some ideas around what I call momentum builders. How do we gain momentum in this process? And addiction busters. How do we, all these habits, all these addictions that we have in the way that we behave, how do we break those? And insight boosters, because if you want to go in a direction, we've got to elevate ourselves in having the aspire more part. I also talk about this notion of we need to be simultaneously a cheetah, a hog, and an eagle. We need to be quick and targeted like a cheetah. We need to be a hog and hoard all the information and knowledge that we can. And we need to be like an eagle, aware of the big picture while focused on the details. And then I essentially end the book with a 2-minute warning, which is around machine mastery, artificial intelligence, and what lies ahead. If things are changing so fast, if machines are trying to be all over around us, is this a real danger? How do we look? How do we act? So that should give you some ideas of the different pieces of the book. Most often people ask me, so why do we have to buy the book? Why do we have to read the book? What's in it for me? So I hope you understand that the world is changing and you agree. I hope that it's important for us to stay relevant. I hope that you understand that wherever you are, that is important to you. The main thing is, if we want to evolve, if we want to thrive, we have to be purposeful in our evolution. We have to be intelligent in our evolution, and we have to plan that evolution. So what I've tried to do in the book is bring 30 some odd years of my experience with early stage, big companies, small companies, the travels that I have done, to try to provoke the mind, not to write a how-to. So with that, I'd like to ask you one last thing. Please do not ponder. Please do not wait. Let's remember that Noah did not build the ark when it was raining. We don't need a crisis to change. We need a willingness to change. We need a desire. And And I'd like to ask you to not leave change to chance in business and in life, to gain the edge and beat the odds. Thanks.